On a red-eye flight from New York to London, a single father slept in seat 8A. To everyone around him, he was just another exhausted passenger, a man who hadn't slept enough in days. Then the captain's voice cut through the cabin, urgent and unlike any routine announcement. If there are any combat pilots on board, please identify yourself immediately. The cabin froze. No one moved. The man in seat 8A opened his eyes and understood that the past he had buried to protect his daughter was calling his name. Why would a single dad be the one an entire flight was waiting for? 3 hours earlier, Michael Turner had boarded Air Atlantic Flight 447 with nothing but a carry-on bag and the kind of exhaustion that comes from being both father and foundation to his 7-year-old girl. He found seat 8A, slid into it without looking at anyone, and let his head fall back against the headrest. The young man beside him wore headphones and never looked up. That suited Michael fine. He wasn't looking for conversation. He was looking for sleep. As the flight attendants moved through their safety demonstration, Michael closed his eyes. He had made this trip twice a year since taking a software engineering job in Portland. The company insisted on face-to-face meetings that could have been handled over video calls, but Michael needed the paycheck more than he needed the argument. So he took the red-eye, slept when he could, and got home to Maya as fast as possible. Sleep came quickly. The hum of the engines became white noise. The cabin lights dimmed, and Michael Turner disappeared into dreams he would rather not have. In the dream, he was back in the cockpit of an F-16. The sky around him was dark except for the glow of the instruments. His call sign crackled through the radio. Falcon. They had given him that name during his second year of flight school, back when he still believed he would do this forever. He had worked twice as hard to earn his wings. A black pilot in a world where faces like his were still too rare in the cockpit. The stick felt right in his hands, like an extension of his own body. Then Maya's voice cut through the radio static. Daddy, are you coming home? The cockpit dissolved. Now he stood in their living room in Portland. Maya was 4 years old in this memory. She stood in the doorway wearing pajamas. It was the night he told her he was leaving the Air Force. I'm coming home, sweetheart, he had said. And I'm staying home. Maya looked at him with wide, serious eyes. Promise. I promise. He woke to the sound of the captain's voice. Not calm. Not rehearsed. This voice was tight. The kind of voice that makes people sit up straighter. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Williams. We are experiencing a technical situation that requires immediate attention. If there are any military pilots on board, particularly fighter pilots with experience in manual flight under extreme conditions, please identify yourself to a flight attendant immediately. Passengers looked around at one another. The young man beside Michael removed his headphones. No one stood. The murmurs grew louder. Someone asked what kind of technical situation could require a fighter pilot. Michael sat very still. He knew exactly what that announcement meant. He had heard enough emergency calls during 12 years of service to recognize the controlled panic beneath the captain's words. This was not a drill. This was the kind of request you only make when something has gone very, very wrong. His first thought was Maya. She was home asleep. Her braids spread across her pillow. A stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. If this plane went down, she would wake up tomorrow and learn her father was gone. His second thought was that he could help. 12 years flying F-16s. Hundreds of hours in conditions that would ground commercial pilots. He had landed damaged aircraft, handled equipment failures, brought machines home when everyone else thought they were lost. He was trained for chaos. His third thought was the promise. The one he made the day he left the Air Force. No more risks. No more deployments. No more nights when Maya wondered if he was coming home. He had walked away from that life to be the father she needed. Steady. Present. Safe. But if he did nothing now, there would be no coming home at all. A flight attendant appeared. Her name tag read Nicole. Please remain calm and stay in your seats, she said. We are following all safety protocols. If anyone has military flight experience, please make yourself known now. She moved through the cabin. Row 5, row 6, row 7, then row 8. Her eyes met Michael's. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she continued. Michael stared ahead. In his mind, he saw two futures. Maya asleep in her bed. Maya standing at a funeral, too young to understand why her father never came back. He stood. The nearby passengers fell silent. Michael stepped into the aisle. I was a fighter pilot, he said quietly. F-16s. 12 years. Nicole looked him over. A wrinkled hoodie. Jeans. No uniform. No credentials. Nothing that screamed military hero. You're saying you were military? I was. Retired 3 years ago. Do you have identification? Michael shook his head. I haven't carried my military ID since I got out. Nicole's expression hardened. If you're not who you say you are, people could die. I understand. And I'm telling you the truth. Before she could respond, another voice interrupted. Let me talk to him. A gray-haired man stood from seat 9C. My name's Robert Hayes. Former Army. If he's legit, he'll answer a few questions. Robert wasted no time. What fighter did you fly? F-16 Viper. How many hours? Just over 2,000. What squadron? 56th Fighter Wing. Luke Air Force Base. Hydraulic failure procedures? Michael answered instantly. Activate the emergency power unit. Switch to manual reversion. If both systems fail, use differential thrust for directional control. Robert studied him. Then he turned to Nicole. He's the real deal. Nicole hesitated. Finally, she nodded. Come with me. The passengers watched as Michael followed her toward the cockpit. Whispers followed behind them. Questions. Fear. A child asking whether the plane was going to crash. At the cockpit door, Nicole stopped. I'm taking you up there because we don't have another option, she said. But if you do anything that puts this flight in danger, I will stop you myself. Understood. Understood. The door opened. Michael stepped inside. The cockpit glowed with instrument lights. Captain Williams sat slumped in the left seat. His skin was pale. A doctor knelt beside him. He's had a stroke, she said. Mild, I think. But he can't fly. The first officer sat rigidly in the right seat. Fear showed plainly on his face. Who's this? He asked. Former Air Force fighter pilot, Nicole answered. The first officer looked at Michael. Can you fly this? Michael stepped closer. Warning lights blinked across the panel. The autopilot display showed a red X. Hydraulic pressure was falling. He felt the slight yaw of the aircraft. You lost your fly-by-wire system, Michael said. You're in manual reversion mode. The first officer stared. How did you know? Because your bank angle is off-center. Airspeed is low. And those hydraulic gauges are telling the rest of the story. How long have we got? Not long. The first officer swallowed. I've never dealt with anything like this. Michael nodded. You're doing fine. But you need help. How much fuel? Enough for London. Barely. Michael shook his head. You're not making London. The first officer immediately answered. Shannon Airport. Ireland. That's the move. Nicole stepped forward. You're sure? Michael looked at her. For the first time since waking up, the fear loosened slightly. Not because the danger was gone. Because this was familiar. Training. Instinct. Decision under pressure. I can do this. Nicole held his gaze. Then she stepped back. Do it. Michael took the jump seat. The Atlantic stretched below them in darkness. Somewhere far behind, Maya slept peacefully, unaware that her father had just stepped back into the life he promised to leave behind. Michael pushed the thought away. One step at a time, he said. Let's get everyone home. The first officer declared an emergency. Shannon responded immediately. Runway 10 was cleared. Emergency services were deployed. Michael relayed their situation. Dual hydraulic failure. Captain incapacitated. Manual reversion. 189 passengers. 6 crew. The controller's tone sharpened, but remained calm. Runway 10 is yours. The descent began. The hydraulic pressure kept dropping. Michael calculated silently. 35 to 40 minutes before total failure. Maybe less. Nicole returned to the cockpit. The passengers want answers. Tell them the truth, Michael said. We're diverting. We're landing. Tell them to stay calm. She studied him. Will we make it? Yes. He said it with certainty he didn't completely feel. But she nodded and left. The descent continued. A tremor shook the aircraft. The first officer panicked. Michael stopped him. Don't overcorrect. What if we stall? Trust the airplane. The younger pilot took a breath. The turbulence passed. Fear isn't the problem, Michael said. Panic is. Minutes later, the situation worsened. Hydraulic pressure dropped again. Passengers grew restless. Some cried. Others prayed. Robert Hayes helped keep order. Even the doctor addressed the cabin, reassuring everyone that the captain was stable and that a qualified pilot was helping. Back in the cockpit, Michael made a decision. I need primary control. The first officer stared at him. I'm responsible for this aircraft. And I'm trying to help you bring it home. Silence. Then a slow nod. Okay. Michael wrapped his hands around the controls. Muscle memory returned instantly. Different aircraft. Same principles. Fly the machine. Trust the training. Protect the people behind you. The plane descended toward Ireland. 70 miles. 50. 30. Hydraulic pressure dropped to 15%. Then 10. Then 8. The math stopped working. The airplane would lose control before reaching the runway. Michael chose the only option left. A faster descent. Riskier. More aggressive. Nicole ordered passengers to brace. Seat belts tightened. Prayers filled the cabin. The coastline appeared ahead. Runway lights glowed in the darkness. 5%, the first officer announced. Hold together, Michael whispered. The aircraft shuddered violently. 4%. 3. 2. The runway grew larger. Closer. Achievable. 1%. Michael said nothing. Every thought narrowed into a single objective. Reach the ground. The runway filled the windshield. The hydraulic gauge hit 0. We lost everything, the first officer said. The controls went lifeless. No hydraulics. No normal steering. Only engines. Michael's mind jumped instantly to an old procedure. Differential thrust. Using engine power to steer. The first officer stared at him. You can't land a commercial jet like that. Michael never looked away from the runway. Watch me. He adjusted one engine. Then the other. The aircraft responded. Barely. But it responded. 100 feet. 50. 20. The runway rushed toward them. The wheels slammed into the tarmac. The impact shook the entire aircraft. Passengers screamed. Metal groaned. The plane bounced once. Then settled. They were down. But they were moving far too fast. We don't have brakes, the first officer said. Michael keyed the radio. Shannon, where's the arrestor bed? The controller responded instantly. 3,000 feet ahead. Right side. Follow the guide lights. Michael spotted them. Red lights in the darkness. A final chance. Brace everybody, he said. Nicole's voice echoed through the cabin. Brace positions now. Michael used differential thrust one final time. The aircraft turned. Slowly. Reluctantly. Toward the sand bed. The runway blurred beneath them. The engines roared. Then went silent. The nose entered the arrestor bed. The deceleration hit like a wall. Passengers lurched forward. The aircraft twisted. For a terrifying moment it felt as though it might flip. Then it straightened. Slower. 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 And finally, stillness. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence felt impossible. The first officer stared ahead. We're down. Michael released the controls. His hands trembled. The doctor exhaled. That was the most terrifying experience of my life. How's the captain? He's stable. Relief swept through the cockpit. Then the cabin erupted. Laughter. Crying. Cheers. Disbelief. People were alive. Nicole stepped into the cockpit. Tears streaked her face. You did it. Michael shook his head. We all did. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft. Slides deployed. Passengers began evacuating. One by one. Family by family. Life by life. Robert Hayes shook Michael's hand. Hell of a job. Thanks for backing me up. Robert smiled. I'm a journalist. Michael groaned. Leave my name out of it. Robert laughed. Too late. Passengers stopped Michael as he moved toward the exit. A young mother thanked him. An elderly couple told him they would get to see their grandson. Even the man who had doubted him apologized. I was scared. So was everyone else, Michael replied. At the door, Nicole stepped aside. You should go first. No. This is your aircraft. She smiled softly. Not anymore. Michael slid down the evacuation chute and stepped onto Irish soil. Cold air hit his face. He walked away from the aircraft and finally looked back. The plane sat buried in the arrestor bed. Damaged. Silent. Surrounded by emergency crews. And yet alive. Every person aboard had survived. A voice came from behind him. You look like you could use a minute. Nicole stood there. Exhausted. Human. No longer just a flight attendant. Are you okay? She asked. Michael looked at the plane. At the flashing lights. At the people hugging one another. I don't know. They stood together in silence. Then Nicole spoke. I didn't trust you. I know. I thought you might be lying. Michael nodded. But you weren't. She hesitated. Why didn't you stand up right away? Michael looked down. I have a daughter. Nicole listened. 3 years ago, I promised her I was done taking risks. Done flying. Done being the guy who might not come home. But you stood up. Because if I didn't, none of us were coming home. Nicole was quiet. Then she smiled. Your daughter is going to hear about this. Michael sighed. Probably. And when she does, she'll know something important. What's that? That her father kept his promise. Michael looked at her. You promised you'd come home. And you did. His throat tightened. You also made sure 188 other people could do the same. For a moment, he couldn't answer. Nicole touched his arm. Thank you, Michael. Then she walked away. Michael stood alone beneath the Irish night sky. Finally, he pulled out his phone and turned it on. Missed calls. Text messages. All from Mrs. Patterson. He called immediately. She answered on the first ring. Michael, are you okay? I'm fine. Oh my God. I saw the news. Michael closed his eyes. Is Maya asleep? Yes. Good. They're saying you landed the plane. Michael looked back at the aircraft. The flashing lights reflected across the wet tarmac. Do me a favor. Anything. Don't tell Maya yet. Let me tell her myself. Mrs. Patterson's voice softened. Of course. When will you be home? I don't know. Soon. She'll be proud of you. The call ended. Michael slipped the phone into his pocket. The night was cold, but for the first time in hours, he could breathe. In a few days he would be home. Back in Portland. Back with Maya. And eventually he would have to explain why her father had done the one thing he promised never to do again. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, he was simply grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful that 195 people were going home. And grateful that when the moment came, he had remembered exactly who he was.